So I'm really excited to have on my podcast today Tricia Nelson. So a little bit about her. She has lost 50 pounds by identifying and healing the underlying causes of her emotional eating. Tricia is an emotional eating expert and a TEDx speaker whose talk has garnered over 2 million views on YouTube. She is the author of the #1 best-selling book, Heal Your Hunger: 7 Simple Steps to End Emotional Eating. Tricia is the host of a popular podcast called The Heal Your Hunger Show and has spent over 30 years researching the hidden causes of the addictive personality. Tricia has been featured on NBC, CBS, KTLA, Fox, and Discovery Health. And I'm really, really excited to have this conversation. So welcome, Tricia. Thank you for being on my show today.
Thank you for having me. It's wonderful to be here.
And I just want to start, like always, say anything you would like to say about yourself. Some people like to talk about them, some don't. Or we could start off with uh, your journey of like,
You may be sorry you asked.
no, I love it. I love, like, I want you to tell us anything you want us to know, and we could dive right into your books or the weight loss. But 50 pounds is significant,
Yeah.
and if you've struggled with weight loss, that is a lot, and to keep it off, like, that's the other key. So
Amen.
I would love to hear about your origin story or whatever you want to
Yeah,
start with.
yeah. No, I speak of it freely because it really drives me every single day. Like I get out of bed, hoping to help one person not live in the darkness I lived in with food and weight. And it did start at a young age. I mean, I loved food from as far as I could, remember. I loved to eat. I loved to cook. I loved to go out to restaurants. It's just a big highlight for me. And that wouldn't have been bad. Right now we have a term for it. It's called foodie. But for me it was bad because I was 50 pounds overweight by the time I was 21. And I just hated it. I had a roll in my tummy that I would scrunch up in my hands and imagine cutting off like you cut like fat off the side of a steak. I imagined getting some disease where I'd automatically lose weight. I even thought about going to like the army. So in boot camp, I'd be forced to exercise because I hated exercise. So it was like a thing. Like I thought about it a lot. And I wasn't happy. Some people are like, whatever. That was not me. I was obsessed with weight. I had so much self-loathing about the roll in my tummy or gaining weight, and especially being on the dieting roller coaster ride. So I'd be like up 30, down 20, up 10, down 5, up 40. Like I was always in a different size pants. I had like 5 different sizes of pants in my closet from not, knowing where I was going to end up. And the skinny jeans barely ever got worn. So that's how it was. And at some point, I just thought, oh my God, I can't. Well, no, okay, here's what happened. I was on a really strict food plan at one point. I was in this program that where they weigh and measure and their food. And I did great. I lost like 40 pounds that time, super strict. And then I started to stop having a grip on food. Like I started to self-sabotage. And I remember I was sitting with a friend on the couch and I had this bowl of grapes, that I was serving. I was ostensibly serving to my friend, like, here's my little thing. Well, I ate the whole bowl. Like I ate the whole bowl of grapes, which was not on my food plan, and it wasn't at mealtime. And after my friend left, I was like, here we go again. Here we go
Mm.
again. It's about to start. And I knew it. I was about to go back up the scale like I'd done so many times before. And I thought, I can't, there's got to be another way. Like, there's got to be another way. I can't do this for the rest of my life. I can't do the yo-yo. I knew it was unhealthy and I couldn't do it. And the cool thing about making a strong decision about what you don't want to do is the next option presents itself. It's like you got to close one door before another door opens. It's a more cliche way of saying it. And that was true. And shortly thereafter, I met somebody or re-met somebody who I asked to help me. He had been morbidly obese and he lost the weight spiritually and emotionally and mentally. Like he worked on the spiritual, emotional, and mental, and the physical took care of itself.
Mm.
And so I'm like, I want that. And he began to mentor me. And boy, did it change everything. And I was able to really heal my relationship with food. And it was really, I was healing my relationship with myself, like, and the
Mhm.
food was, again, I had heard one time, and this was so apt, overweight is a symptom of overeating, and overeating is a symptom of what's eating me. And I understand there's other issues, health issues that contribute. So it's certainly, that's needs to be considered. But the idea was, I was emotionally eating. I was stuffing with food, and I always went back to stuffing with food or using food for emotional reasons. That was my problem. So I had to learn how to have a new relationship with food that wasn't emotional. Like food was no longer my best friend and my comforter and my lover and my, entertainer. Like I had to have a whole new relationship with food in order to be able to lose weight and keep it off.
So, if you don't mind me asking, and you could always say no, did you have a sense of what was going on at that time? Were you just stressed with like being like young and school? Was there stressors that, or was just food celebrated? I mean, food is such a hot topic with anything because it's cultural. It's like something your parents want to give you or you have, like, especially as women, there's so many things. Did you have a sense, or did you figure out what was kind of driving that underneath emotional, and I know we're going to talk about the addictive cycle, and that's part of it. Like you go back and there's a whole
Yeah,
thing. But for
there
you, what was it that
it
like,
wasn't. So what it was, Donna, is I wasn't prepared to be in a thinner body. So the
mm,
fat was serving me. And the problem with dieting and being on a strict weighing and measuring food plan is basically a diet. I, when you're on any kind of diet, the diet, of course, takes away all the fun foods, like all the sugar and carbs, the foods that will kill you, basically, which you shouldn't eat. But the diet takes away all those fun foods. And then they're like, you're going to lose weight. And it's true. It's true. If you cut out sugar and carbs, and bread and candy and whatever, ice cream, you for sure will lose weight. Problem is, if you're an emotional eater or food addicted, you need more than just to clear those things out. You need a replacement for those things because those things are your way of coping with life, usually since you were young. Not everybody, for some it's menopause, but it's like that's how you coped. Food was my coping tool, and I
mm,
used it day in and day out. So when the diet takes it away, you can only last for so long. Like you're like white knuckling. Of course, you have the high of losing weight. Like, who doesn't love that? So the high would keep me buoyed for a little while. Like, oh, look at me, and I can now fit in a size 6 or whatever. It's like, but then that wears off and that doesn't suffice. And what's happening is that all the feelings that were pushed down and kept in captivity by the fat and the eating are starting to come to the surface. So what happened on it is I had no tools. The diet, the food plan gave me no way to deal with everything that was buried that was coming to the surface because
mm,
feelings buried alive never die.
right,
And so
yeah,
that's what happened is, I had the high of losing weight over the course of like 8 or 9 months. But then like I was wearing like 4 outfits a day. Like I was trying to get as much hit from cute clothes as possible. I love clothes, so I was like, look at me, I can fit into these. It's when you've been overweight and you can't fit, now there's options, but I mean, I'm getting on in age. So back in the day, there were crappy options for fat people, And so when you can all of a sudden fit into normal clothes, it's like a heyday. So that's what I was doing, but I couldn't, but I was using it again to fill me up because I didn't have the food And that is not a winning solution because it wore off. And people
Yeah.
stopped commenting and saying how good you look so you don't get the ego hits. And I was barren. I was like, oh my God, I'm feeling uncomfortable. And I went to my therapist. I'm like, I don't feel good. Like something's wrong. And she didn't know what was wrong with me. And now in hindsight, it's just everything I hadn't dealt with was in my face. And that's why we self-sabotage is we're like, I need to run for cover in food again because it worked. Like it
Yeah.
worked and I don't feel right. And that's what emotional eating is we eat to feel better. And I was feeling crappy and I didn't know why. I mean, honestly, I would have been put on medication. I would have been put on antidepressants. That would have been the next phase, right? And then I would have gone down that road and nothing would have been healed. Like I
No.
needed to address my stuff and therapy, I don't know whether I would have. I tried. It didn't really work for me. And so I needed a better way. And thankfully, my mentor showed me how to do that. And then I've just committed really my life to showing other people. I codified it. I put it in my book. I created a system. I have a program around it. And one woman at a time, I'm helping her change her relationship with food so she doesn't have to do that dieting roller coaster ride thing again or get other health issues. And our emotions, certainly, and you know this, it's like our emotions impact our health, our gut health, our immune health, cancer. It's like we've got to figure this out or we're going to die from burying our emotional selves and not using our voice, which is a lot of what emotional eaters are masters at stuffing what they want to say. Like, I'm fine, which fine stands for effed up, insecure, neurotic, and emotional.
Yeah, I like
So
that
stop saying
too.
you're fine. You're not fine, you know? And so, like, I teach people how to speak up and we celebrate it. Like in our group calls, it's like I celebrate any movement, and a woman will raise her hand and say, I said no to something I didn't want to do, and we're all like, woohoo! Like it's this. It seems so small, but when you've been pretending you're fine and going along with everybody to keep the peace, when you speak up and say your truth, in a nice way, that is to be celebrated because that's not how we've lived, and the overeating has been the result of that.
I love all of everything you said. And, we talked a little bit about, there's been a lot of medical gaslighting. We, if you have a chronic illness, especially if it's undiagnosed, and you're a woman, the speaking up part, the saying fine,
Yeah.
like maybe I don't feel so bad. Why do I feel like this? You just feel different. So whether you're overweight and doing that, and not, there's a safety component where you just don't feel safe and you don't know how to figure out how to process your stuff. Because unfortunately, I mean, in my opinion, that stuff is basic fundamental stuff in schools and stuff, but we don't get taught how to deal with anger and shame and like there's
No.
this fight, it's just kind of like
Right.
very cognitive, but even there doesn't. But there's a lot of emotion stuff that's processed, and we're not an emotionally intelligent society. It's like, how do
No.
I deal with my emotions? What do I do?
That's
So I
right.
love that you've created this system where people can come and like learn how to do that. And it affects their weight, but also something deeper is that they're because you're not just your weight, you're not just your spirit, you're not just your mind. Like we all work together. So segmenting it doesn't really help. It helps for a little bit, but then, like you said, if you work on the body and you get to that place where you're like, oh crap, what do I do now? And you don't have
Yeah.
those tools. So, and it all is secular. So, can you talk a little bit more about your kind of philosophy, what you've developed? And I'd love
Yeah.
for everyone to know.
Yeah. So basically, what I realized is that and my mentor told me this, he said, you have a living problem, not an eating problem. And it was true. I was living on stress, burning the candle at both ends, trying to prove my worth. Will you approve of me? Will you validate me? And using sugar and caffeine to keep me propped up when I was running myself ragged. So, that's a problem. So the living problem is where I put the focus. Everybody knows salads are healthier than ice cream and pizza. I mean, we're not stupid. So we know what to eat, but we can't follow through on what we know. So, what I address is that gap. Like, why can't we follow through and how can we start following through on what we know? Because we don't need more information. Like we don't, everybody's like, give me the diet, tell me what to eat. Well, you already know what to eat. You just can't eat it, and you don't want it. You only want it for like a week, and then you're like, give me the good stuff. So we have to start looking at how we're living. And so that compulsion to eat, that like crazy feeling of I've got to have it. What is that? And I call it a compulsion. It's like a tidal wave. It's coming. You can't stop it. Or perhaps it's like magma in a volcano. It's like getting hotter and hotter, and it's gonna blow. Like the volcano's gonna blow. You're gonna blow and eat. And because you can't stop it, and it's like a tightening in your gut. It feels like a monster inside of you, and it's so demoralizing because you're like you don't have control. You don't have control, and unfortunately everybody's trying to have control, and I say give it up. Willpower
Mm.
for a certain segment of people, it's not going to work. Willpower will not work. So what I want to do is teach people where that, what's fueling that, where that heat, where that magma comes from. And it's three things. The first is emotions. Like if you, again, emotions buried alive, never die. If you stuff emotions, your anger, your fear, your rage, your sense of betrayal, your loneliness, right? Your hurt feelings. When you just eat it down, you're just creating pressure inside of yourself, right? That's creating that volcanic magma. And so that pressure, when it gets to be enough, it's going to make you blow in a binge. Emotions are the first thing. The second is stress, because overeaters are overdoers. Okay. Like I'm telling you, you need something done, give it to an overeater. Because like every time we'll trash ourselves getting it done. Like we want that approval. So we are like working for it. And that comes at a high cost to our health. So that's a problem. And because stress causes stress eating.
Hmm.
And people pleasing is the number one trait I have in my book. I talk about the anatomy of the emotional eater, which is 24 personality traits that drive emotional eating. And the top trait is people pleasing. Like we're just consummate people pleasers because we want that validation. But that creates stress. So when we're saying yes to all the projects, when we're working late, when we're, up until 2 a.m. making brownies for the soccer team the next day, we're running ourselves ragged. We're totally stressing our adrenals, and then nobody's ever as pleased as we plan on them being. So we're
Hmm.
also pissed off, right? And resentful. It's like people pleasing and resentment go together like peanut butter and jelly. So
Yep.
we're exhausted and pissed off, and it just fuels the I deserve it binge. Like screw them, they're not appreciating me. I'm gonna appreciate myself. I'm gonna reward myself, right? So
Yes.
so it's like there's a method to the madness, but it is madness. So we have to address our stress and have healthy ways of dealing with stress. And some stress is not self-created. It's just happening. You get to middle age, you got parents who are still alive. They get stuff and it gets stressful. I'm dealing with that right now. And so it's like life has stress. If you have kids, there's stress. A demanding job, there's stress. You can't get around that. But for us, we use food as our stress valve, like as our relief valve, and we need a healthier one. Like we can't be eating every time we're stressed out because that's just creating sickness. So stress
Hmm.
is the second thing that causes the compulsion. The third thing is habit. because we habitually eat, which means we need new habits. And I don't even mean habits around food. I mean, again, back to living. We need those new self-care habits. And I have something called the 6 self-care success secrets. And it's walking instead of beating yourself up with hard exercise, just walking, gentle walking,
Mhm.
walking, meditating, prayer, writing, reading spiritual literature, and talking, like just like getting it out. And so those are the 6 self-care success secrets. And if you do them instead of eating and you develop them as a consistent habit, you will change your relationship with food. Problem is, you won't do it. So, everybody who's on a weight loss path knows they should journal their feelings. Like that is not a newsflash, but we don't do it. Like we just don't do it. So community is the glue that makes it all stick. And my programs happen in community with other emotional eaters. First of all, being with other emotional eaters is so powerful because we all think we're the only ones who have done the
Mhm.
crazy crap we've done. In my TEDx talk, I talk about garbage eating, which is I used to binge, you know, ice cream, chips, whatever. Cereal, I'd binge and I get so full that I would throw the remains out and be like, "Oh my God, that's so disgusting. Like you love it going in, you hate it at the end of the binge. You're like, that's disgusting." So you throw it out. But then later, when I had room in my tummy, I'd be like, I know there's some perfectly good cookies in the trash, and I'd go get them. And then I'd be like, oh my God, I am the worst person in the world. I just ate out of the garbage. That's disgusting. Well, reenacted that in my TEDx talk. Turns out many other people have done garbage eating as well. And so, we need to get together. We need to get together and laugh about the crazy things we've done because otherwise we live in isolation, which just like perpetuates the problem, isolation and shame. So my programs
Mhm.
are done in community with other emotional eaters because it's so healing. And also connection is what we're craving. It's not food we're really craving. We need connection,
Oh, I love all of that. Like, it's so
Yeah.
true because there is naming it, and you talk a lot about, one powerful thing in your community to voice to speak up and what that is, and not just for accolades, but like, what if you say something that people don't like or you're embarrassment? But having that shame exposed, a light on, is such a big thing. And to know you're not alone. Like, you're not, even though it feels like you're living in your own little bubble and like, oh God, if people knew, sort of thing,
Yeah.
once that's busted up, or even just telling your story and listening to that, like right now, and people like, oh, I do that. Like, I'm not alone. It's not a wacky, weird thing. There's not something wrong with me. It's just I don't have the tools yet to deal with what you like to, the living part of life.
Yeah.
And stress is stress. It's always going to be something you can't manage it. And you said something about willpower that I really like, because you can't. It's not about willpower. It's not that you're strong enough. I know in my communities and stuff, going to doctors, and they just say, oh, you look, yeah, there's no way you could be eating healthy. Your labs are good. You're fat. You're not,
My
you're eating
God.
more than you're moving. Just move more and eat less, which is like so just horrible
Yeah.
on all these levels.
Yeah.
But then it looks like, oh, you have a willpower thing. And even though I ate really well and I knew it wasn't a willpower thing, I'm like, I started thinking, well, maybe I don't have enough willpower. And then it gets more extreme. Well, then maybe I should do more. Maybe I should cut down less. Maybe I should exercise more. Maybe I am crazy. Maybe they're right. And then that
Mm,
kind of thinking leads to things that are unsustainable,
yeah.
like going on, like, just eating nutrition dens, or I've done everything from the master cleanse. I mean, I've done every diet out there
Right.
and under the world, and there still wasn't improvement. I was like, I know there's something else wrong with my body. That's turns out it is a connective tissue. But even just the shame and this relationship, I got a really negative relationship with food because I would eat healthy food and my body didn't respond.
Yeah.
So I do like that you're looking at things like it's a habit. It's not, you have to trade and you have to figure out, yeah, like why don't we do them? So is there some tricks or is there anything you want to talk about? Anyone that's listening, like, okay, like I know healthy food, I know walking or journaling is great for me. Um, I am sure you uncover it in community, but is there anything you can help anyone now with like, okay, if you're know you should be doing it and you're not, what are some ways to uncover why you're not doing it or motivate you to do it?
Well, I think, just stop. I mean, I love your show and what you stand for because just stopping beating yourself up and doubting yourself is so critical. I mean, it is a relationship with ourselves that we need to heal. I mean, if we don't speak up, even though, we're angry at doctors for invalidating us, we're really mad at ourselves for not using our voice,
Yeah.
and that self anger comes at a cost as well. And so it's just really important that we do that. I mean, again, it's hard to do without support because, if you've been used to people pleasing and not saying boo, it's hard to start saying boo, because you feel like an ass, and then oh, that was so harsh, I shouldn't have said that, and you barely said boo. Barely said boo, and you feel like you just yelled at somebody. That's what it feels like to speak up, you know. But I do have in my book, I have like a whole chapter on the speaking
Oh,
up.
okay.
Yeah, and so that's really powerful. Um, and I would also just say I recommend people take a really honest look at their schedule. Like, do you need to be as busy as you are? And I'm guilty of this too, because I get super busy. But I also leave room for self-care. I have to meditate. Like meditation has innumerable benefits. And meditation's hard. And again, that's why in my program it's like we're practicing things that are hard to do. Like it's hard. Everybody knows they should meditate, just like everybody knows they should write their feelings down. It's just hard to get it going. So, in community it's much easier, but if somebody can focus on that and get support in that, that's going to be really important as well. Because meditation will heal your body. Like it'll heal your stress. It'll repair things inside your body that stress is destroying. It'll help you get more in touch with yourself. It's just that people judge meditate, like they try to meditate, like 2 minutes later, like, it's not working because I'm thinking about my grocery list. That's okay. Like, just stick with it. That's okay. And if you have to do a guided meditation first, get a app, the Calm app or the Insight Timer is another one. I use Insight Timer, and they have a jillion guided meditations. Like, do something to slow down because the busy is it will make you sick. That busy, that rat race, that hamster wheel, it's really unhealthy and we get sucked into it. Where can you get support? Where can you ask for help? We're just not used to that in our culture, and especially as emotional eaters, we're not used to asking for help. It's all kind of like embarrassing, and it's also we're not used to asking for help with our eating too, because we think we should be able to handle this, or whatever. And that's just BS. To me, if you do have an addictive habit with food, it's the hardest of all addictive habits because you have to eat. So instead of poo-pooing it like, oh, that's so stupid, no, it's the hardest, which means of course you should get help with it. We don't mind getting support at the gym, right? We'll get a trainer. We're like, we all know we'll do the exercise and we'll do it in a healthy way if we have a trainer watching over us and sometimes kicking our ass. We know we'll do it. And somehow that's not, there's no shame around that, right? But, or, somebody who is a pro athlete, there's no shame around, Serena Williams having one or two coaches. Like she knows she needs it. She's not going to win another Grand Slam if she doesn't get coached. But when it comes to food, we're like, oh, I'm going to figure this out on my own. Why? It's like you have to eat. You have to take the tiger out of the cage 3 times a day, pet the nice kitty, and then get it back in the cage without getting your behind torn off. You better have some
Yeah.
help. Like you need backup. so, so we
I
need
love that analogy. That's great.
we have to change how we think about it.
No, and it's so true because it is something you have to do. You can't just not eat. That
Yeah.
has a slew of other health problems. There is a balance, and no one really teaches you how to eat for your body and what is good
Yes.
for you. Like, there's so many theories on what to eat, and there's biohacking and blah, blah, blah.
And
There's
if
a
you follow
billion.
everything, all you can eat is ice cubes. Like if you
Yes.
follow all the advice, everything cancels each other out.
Yep. And they're so extreme. And then the other time there's like always like, well, be a homemaker or like bake and cook. And, cooking is all this other stuff. So that's
Yeah.
so many piled on mixed messages that
Yeah.
you do need to have someone look at, especially if they're in a cycle of addictive anything, but
Yeah.
especially with food, because you are right. It is the hardest one. I
Yeah.
mean, everything is hard, but food is you need to have learn a different relationship with it, and in a community is one of the most powerful ways. I mean,
Yeah.
I think I have when I used to be a part of a meditation group for a long time, and I meditated like I could meditate for an hour to 2 hours a day at different times, and then on my own maybe 10-15 minutes. And you have to, like anything, it sounds like you have this really nice setup to teach people, like, okay, yeah, so you think it's not, you can't just do it and learn all this stuff with, like, you just know it just because you're live and you say, oh, I'm going to meditate. Need practice, and you need like a mentor like you had to help you kind of tweeze out what that means for you. And I do
Absolutely.
know, I've read some, not all of your book, but highlights of it. And you talk about the PEP. Is that correct?
Yes.
So
Yes. Yeah.
can you talk a little bit about that? I think that's really, really
You
powerful and
bet.
interesting.
So we know what food, like unhealthy foods do to us. But what PEP is about is what foods do for us. And we got to take a look at this because we're eating for a reason. It's not, I mean, people are like, oh, I just like food. I thought that too, but the truth is we got to dig into this. Like if it's a addictive habit, it's got to pay off for us. Let's look at that. And so PEP is a way of identifying the emotions that drive emotional eating. Because, of course, we don't think, oh, I'm going to go look in the refrigerator because I'm feeling sad, or I'm going to look in the refrigerator because I'm stressed. We typically are not clued in. We're just like, no, there's really good dessert in there. That's what I want, and it's sort of like that's face value. That's what we're paying attention to. PEP allows you to start asking some questions about, is it that or is it something else? So
Mm.
PEP is an acronym, PEP. The P, and this is what food does for us. The first P is painkiller. So food is a painkiller, meaning it kills pain. It absolutely just softens the edges of life. Okay, it softens the edges of life. And it works. It's sugar and carbs. Salads don't do it as well. They don't, they don't numb us. They don't numb us. Whereas sugar and processed carbs do. Like they work. And that's one of the reasons why we use them and crave them. They work. They give us comfort. They soften the edges. And then, of course, it doesn't last very long. But that's what we use food for, is a painkiller for all kinds of pain. Changing jobs, aging parents, dysregulated kids, a bill we didn't expect. Life's got lots of pain. Turn on the news, Jesus, there's plenty of pain, happening in the world. And we're empathic people, so we feel it. So we got to watch the news. We got to watching the news. Don't watch the news. Anyway, and so that's P. The E stands for escape, because our brains are constantly on the move. Like we have a very out of control brain that's overthinking everything. And we're not overthinking all the wonderful possibilities. We're overthinking all the terrible possibilities. I call it awfulizing. What if this happened? What if that happens? Am I going to get the job? No, I'm not going to get the job because I suck. It's like our brains are constantly bombarding us. So truthfully, we want to just escape our own brains. And so we sit in front of the TV with our favorite binge foods, or whatever, chocolate, whatever you want. And basically we're trying to check out because our brains are so busy. Hence
Mhm.
why meditation is so powerful. The last P in PEP stands for punishment, which seems counterintuitive because, we eat for reward. I'm going to reward myself. But if you go overboard, if you're somebody who goes overboard and then you feel sick, that's not really a reward. Especially if the next day you cancel like brunch with the girls because you're too bloated. And so
Mhm.
it's really important to see that we're punishing ourselves. And we do that because we're not only overeaters, we're also overfeelers, and we feel guilty about everything. So that's a problem for us, is like we're so hard on ourselves. Oh my goodness, so hard on ourselves. So that's basically PEP, painkiller, escape, and punishment. So next time you do go to the refrigerator looking for that dessert, and hopefully after you've heard this, you'll be like, is it really just because I like dessert? Or, did I just have a phone call that was tough and I want to like offload the stress of that? Or I have an upcoming appointment that is a little scary for me. Or, I had a bad interaction with my spouse and I'm feeling a little guilty and I need to address it. There's stuff there. We're just not used to looking at it. We're used to just obsessing about food and weight. But those are a cover for a deeper conversation, deeper feelings that if we tune in and tap in, we can be in the inquiry. And it doesn't have to be some big T trauma, like, oh, because I was abused as a kid. That may be there, but it's really like real life right now. Real life right now has plenty to serve up to us to cause us to want to go eat if we're not tapped in and tuned in.
Oh, I love that. It's pretty simple. So if it's not like mealtime, if it's not your regular mealtime, or even if it is, like how much you want to eat, if, whatever is preceding that, just ask yourself those three little questions. And then you can always opt like, I'm going to eat it anyway, or maybe I'll take a walk, or let's kind of explore this, or let me go do something else and see if I still want that. And I think they're very powerful questions. I mean, I know for me, my relationship with food, and I'm obsessed with like, oh my God, why am I fat? If I were only skinny, and then I
Yeah.
have this lipedema thing that like blocks it once these disease fat like bulk up. It's really, you can't reverse it. And I've done everything to try to do it. So I know with me, like, I have to look at food like, am I not eating to punish myself? Like,
Mm,
what am I doing with food?
yeah.
Which food is kind of all of it. Like, am I overindulging because I haven't eaten in, 2 days and I just am so hungry? And what am I going for? Like, the easy stuff that's going to fill me. But to have a more sensible relationship, I think everyone, women, I mean, no matter if you're on the overeating or just the relationship with food, I think all women could look at and go to a community to get support to figure out like what is driving me? Like, why am I quote unquote good for a while and then do I go off? Because, I, I've worked with tons of women and um, you know, sugar addiction is real and like no sugar abstaining. And then all of a sudden, like, oh, I'm feeling pretty good. Let me have this one thing. And then it leads to you're back to your sugar thing, and you started with that at the beginning. I think we talked a little bit about, but I think that is so powerful. And to have a community of women, like, and that you've gone through it. So it's not like it's a theory, like you have research,
Yeah.
but like how it feels to be like, oh my God, I just want to eat everything in sight and I don't care
Yeah.
until I feel horrible and then I do. And, because it never makes you feel good. Like,
Mm-mm.
like no matter what you're doing, if you're eating something where you kind of know you shouldn't, maybe, or like it's not going to make you feel good, even if you do it, it's not like you're like, oh, good, I'm so excited I ate it. I don't care. It's usually is backed up by some shame or guilt or, oh, I can't do it anymore. What's wrong with me? Why do I always fall back? Which is a horrible little pit to be in. So I really am so excited that you're doing this. Sorry,
Aw,
you're going to
thank
say something.
you. Yeah, and honestly, I don't know any woman who couldn't use a little up level in her relationship with food and with stress. I think, and with people pleasing. Like, I feel like it's, maybe emotional eaters do this a little bit more than your average person, but I think all women in our culture um probably struggle with this, and struggle with having positive thoughts about their body and having encouraging, self affirming thoughts about themselves. Like, it's just, unfortunately, it's sad, but it doesn't come naturally. Like, we have to practice this. We need to be schooled in changing our belief system about ourselves. It's hard to come by strong self-esteem without working at it, in our culture. It's just the way it is. And men, I don't know, but I specialize in helping women, so that's what I know. I know men struggle with this too, for sure. Um,
But yeah, yeah.
but I think it's
But
harder for
women,
women.
and I do like that it's like a school because it isn't just self-love. Like, okay, I love myself, but but that's like so far removed from so many other steps, like 20 steps to, or 100 sometimes to get there. It's not just if I liked myself more, I'd eat that. It's not that simple. It's very
No.
complex that you're helping figure out, and it's individual. There's some similarities, but it may not look logical. Like that's what I always find underneath, like I'm doing
Yep.
that because that doesn't make any sense. But having a support that you offer, to give time to explore and kind of figure these things out because it isn't unfortunately instant. Like it isn't just a diet here, everything's going to be fixed. You really
No.
need to have the space to feel safe enough in a container to
Yeah.
explore these things. So that
Yeah.
sounds
No doubt.
well.
Yeah.
So I have a quiz. So Trisha was nice enough to share with me a quiz for anyone listening. I'll have that in my show notes and also the links to her resources in her books and any updates if she has any sort of fun things happening in the future. But how do you like people to contact you? What's the best way to kind of get into your world, get into your programs?
Yeah, I would say my website is really kind of grand central for everything I do. The TED Talk's on there. My book is on there. It's on Amazon, but there's a link. If you go to my website, you'll find everything. My podcast is called Confessions of a Binge Eater. That's on there. And then the quiz, like you said, the front and center on my website is the quiz, and I highly recommend taking that quiz. Find out where you are on the emotional eating spectrum, and if you'll get a personalized score, and then you'll get next steps based on your score. So that's like a 3-minute quiz. So that is a great place to start. But yeah, healyourhunger.com. My Instagram's pretty I like my Instagram. I'm putting out a lot of really good content there. And it's Tricia Nelson _. So, check it out.
Okay, great. And I took your quiz and I'm level 3. So,
Okay. Well, congratulations. You're an emotional eater. Woo!
yay. So, on top of that, and I really encourage anyone listening to, no matter if you have a chronic illness like I have and your relationship food is complicated, I think one of the things that I have found that I've had to really is like figure out really not the external things of what I think I should eat or what people, experts say I should eat for all my conditions. But because my body is so atypical, I really need to kind of figure out like, what are my emotions? What is my thoughts underneath this and dealing with the shame and the anger and resentment of I'm 55 this month of 40 plus years of going through all of these things. And there's also a grieving period of anytime you've changed things. I think there's grief, and what do we do with grief? And I think that also underlines like if only if I would have known this before. So in this community, there is a lot of misunderstanding, a lot of like what you said, people pleasing, but also the resentment. There's this anger, there's just all these like free floating emotions, like what can I do with? And to check out Tricia Nelson and her content and her book to kind of get you started on like figuring out where are you on the spectrum and how can you kind of introduce some of these things to help with your relationship food, because we have to eat, and eating positively would is like I think the dream for me.
Amen. Thanks for having me.
All right, thank you so much, Trisha. All right, bye.
Bye.